So, question from you guys. How do I deal with anxiety around what people think? This was part of a much larger question that somebody messaged me the other day, and I answered it for them directly because it pertained to a specific circumstance for them. But I think it's such an awesome topic that I want to try and answer it for you guys. And it's a huge question. It'll be hard to answer in a 3 to 5 minute video, but I'll give it a crack. So, to me, the whole idea around anxiety and being worried what people think, having this particular person was quite crippled in their career in different places because of anxiety about what people think, and it was actually transferred anxiety from something else. So for them, they had a pretty traumatic experience, had them in a lot of fear, and then I believe physiologically we get to a point of susceptibility to anxiety and fear and fight or flight when you're in a difficult situation. So for me, with PTSD, depression, battling suicide, out of the police, I then for many years was in a place where I was always looking for what was going to go wrong. So a hypervigilance type situation. And the problem is when you get caught in that, your head, when you get caught in your mind, in the fear, because fear lives in your mind, it's a physiological adrenal response, it's a chemical response. You end up in a place where you're living 100% in your head, and that's just not where your best answers are. The hippie side of me, the spiritual side of me absolutely believes that our best answers come from our heart, not our head. That's why when you go through a situation, you make a mistake, you stuff it up, you look back and you go, wow, I knew I shouldn't have done that. I really had a feeling I should have done this other thing, but we don't trust it. Because potentially the analytical side of our brain looks at a set of circumstances or stimulus, makes a decision that potentially we should go a different way, even when our heart, gut, instinct, intuition, gut feeling, whatever you want to call it, is pointing us in that other direction. Often we only really trust it in hindsight when the evidence proves to us that, yeah, we should have trusted that feeling. So when it comes to anxiety, I believe it's exactly the same thing. You're living in your head trying to find a circumstance around fear of something that doesn't even exist. And often when it comes to that anxiety piece, and we talked about this the other day, a few days ago, about social anxiety, that's a actual physiological caveman response, if you like, to not fitting in our tribe. Therefore we wouldn't have food, we wouldn't be safe, we'd die. So there's still part of that lizard or limbic brain, prehistoric brain response for us. But also there's just that real fear about what other people think. We're in a society where we're judged pretty harshly. We judge each other, we judge ourselves. And to me, it's actually about looking at the circumstance that you have the fear around, assessing it, asking yourself if it's a reality, and if it's not a reality, just stop worrying. And it's actually that simple. It sounds like a very innocuous, silly thing to say, but it's so true. Stop worrying. Stop stressing about shit that doesn't really matter. Stop worrying about stuff that is just in your head, because you are spending so much of your time caught in your mind, worried about shit that isn't happening, instead of actually worrying about, well, not worrying about, ironically, there's your language, is so automatic. Instead of focusing on living in your heart, trusting yourself, following that instinct and intuition, and actually creating what you want. When you're living in your head, you're reacting to circumstance. When you're living in your heart, then you are absolutely acting. You're creating a situation. Here's a simple example. You come home from work, you walk in the door, your partner, spouse, kids, whoever, ask you, did you get the milk, for instance? You're like, no, forgot about the milk. They say something like, I've asked you 3 times to get it. Why couldn't you get it? You react to that out of frustration. You got no idea what happened to me today. I had such a busy day and blah, 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 blah. And you go into this whole big drama, causes a huge argument and a fight for no reason. That's reacting. You're living in your head. You're trying to avoid the pain or the fear or the judgment or whatever it might be. The other way that conversation goes is you go, walk in the door, did you get the milk? No, I forgot it. I've asked you 3 times to get it. Go, you know what? You have. I apologise. I really should have got it. I'll put it in my phone, or I'll just duck out and get it now. Cool. Done. The second circumstance, you're living in your heart. You're acting. You're choosing your action. The first circumstance, you're living in your head, in stress, in fear, and anxiety, or whatever else, and you're reacting, trying to prove you're right. That is just the simplest version of it. You know in your heart whether you are right or wrong in a situation, and that's really the irrelevant part. Something I've talked to you guys about before. There's 2 things you can be. You can either be happy or you can be right. It's rare you can be both. So choose what's more important. Do you want to live a happy life or do you want to be right? And then you look at that anxiety piece of it and go, are you living in your head where you're constantly worried about what's going on? You're trying to think through what could possibly go wrong in the situation, set up the strategies or the defense mechanisms or whatever to try and change that. So you are constantly in that state of fight or flight panic. Has the physical repercussions of auditory exclusion where you don't hear some things, your vision tunnels, your heart rate increases, your respiration rate increases, you're just ineffective, you're not calm. When you're in adrenal fight or flight, you cannot be living in your heart. When you are calm, you know you're a decent person, you know you're doing the right things, you know you're actually on the right path, then what other people say and do don't affect you. To me, I use it a lot when it comes to challenges I have sometimes with the girl's mum, and I'm like, we have a real pattern over many, many years of interacting, judging each other, and having quite a abrasive relationship. Unfortunately, that's what our marriage is like. So these days I try to really live in my heart with it and go, you know what, potentially the girl's mum's probably reacting to the old me who was quite angry and aggressive and had a bad temper, but I'm not like that anymore. So I don't let that behaviour get dragged out of me. I don't blame her by going, well, she said this and that happened and blah, blah, blah. It's just about own my own actions. Take responsibility for who I am. Then all of a sudden the anxiety disappears, the fear disappears, the bullshit disappears, and you live a life in your heart where you're happy, you're following your instinct and intuition, and things just go peacefully. That, to me, is where I want to live. Hope that makes sense to you guys. Live in your heart, follow what you believe. Don't worry about your head. It's often full of shit. Have an awesome day.